Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello and welcome back, I have to say, Kathy. I'm delighted to have you here again.
I am delighted to be here. I love what you're doing. Souls Touched by Dogs. How wonderful.
Absolutely. And I'm curious to hear, let's just start at the beginning for people who haven't heard the first episode with you. That's been a while back. Let people know where you're based and, what's your business with dogs.
Terrific. Wonderful. Thanks, you, Anka. So, for 20 years, what I've really done is I've helped other rescues get visibility for their dogs because it's just random that somebody happens to see a post on Facebook because we all live on Facebook and Instagram, right? And so that's the way we get it out. Pet Finder, Adopt a Pet, those are very clunky. They don't really get the message out. They're hard to search. The dog is often gone. It's manual to upload it. So, for 20 years, what I've really done is use my connecting networking skills to help rescues place their dogs. And then I've taken adopters from people that are frustrated because most rescues don't reply. They just don't act like businesses. And so if you have a high value proposition, what we call like a doodle or a little foo-foo dog or a golden retriever, you're going to get 100 applications. And they don't have any mechanism for going back to people. Now, if we're in business together, we'd have an email marketing system, a CRM, automatic replies, and they just don't set it up. And you can't talk to them about it either. It's just really frustrating. The business stuff goes in one ear and out the other. So I helped place a golden retriever in the end of 22. He had been abused, physically abused, beautiful, drop dead, gorgeous cream golden. I love goldens. I love all dogs. And it went viral. We had 1,800 shares. So my phone is in my ear going ding, ding, ding all day long. Facebook Messenger, Facebook Messenger. And Messenger is also very difficult to work with. They disappear. They go further and further down. You can't find them again. If I go searching for Anka, I'll come up with 8 million Ankas all over the world, right? And so I started an Excel spreadsheet of all these people that wanted this dog. But this particular dog had PTSD and he was big. And so we had a lot of restrictions. So I had all these people that wanted golden retrievers. And I look at it like a business. Like I have leads, I have homes for dogs. Let's find dogs who need homes. Right. And I went to all my rescue friends. I couldn't get them to focus. It was like, can you find Goldens? Do you have any Goldens? Have you seen any Goldens? I live on the East Coast. I live in Westchester County, New York. There are no Goldens out here.
Oh,
They're very, very few. There's only a couple golden retriever rescues for each state. They're very specific. They have wait lists. They're often not very nice. And so, believe it or not, through a commodity deal I was doing with a guy in Texas, I met a guy in Dallas who was taking dogs off Craigslist, Goldens. He loves Goldens. And he had applied to the Golden Rescue out there when he came back from Iraq, and they denied him for a silly reason. So he went on a personal mission to find Goldens. And so I didn't actually set out to start a rescue. I was like, dude, if you have Goldens, I have homes. And then all of a sudden, I'd done this for 20 years, but I always had a rescue in between. Now it was us. It was like, oh, we need fosters. Oh, I need vet care. Oh, I need a transport to the East Coast. Like, how am I going to get this dog to Connecticut or New York or wherever it was going? So that's how we started. We started officially in March of 23. It was originally called the Golden Retriever Lovers with Brad and Kathy. And then we had to formalize it. We got so busy so quickly. We did 32 dogs in 4 months, all Goldens. And so I built up this humongous network. We rescue all over Texas. We've saved 275 dogs in 19 months.
wow.
About 60% of those are golden retrievers. So we formalize it into the Golden Project. But the tagline is saving those with hearts of gold.
Oh,
And just like touched by a soul, right? Dogs touched by a soul. I think every dog has a heart of gold. So we are best equipped because Goldens have been our focus. We do Goldens, we do great pairing mixes, we do labs, but invariably I end up with other dogs. So lately we've been doing doodles. And so we work just like a business. We work backwards. We get people onto a pre-approved adopter list, and then we find the dog or match the dog to the home. Most rescues will post a dog, which we have some of those as well. We're just posting and randomly hoping that somebody sees the dog and falls in love. But we know our dogs really well. We're foster based. We have 65 foster families in Dallas, all over Dallas. And we have transport set up to come up from Rio Grande Valley, which is the valley of death for so many dogs. So Texas is like a third world country when it comes to dogs. They don't neuter spay. It's very poor in many areas, uneducated in many areas, very large rural areas. Ranchers get Great Pyrenees. They don't neuter spay, don't take them to the vet. They breed more puppies. Puppies get dumped. Puppies get thrown into garbage pails and dumped in suitcases. It's just tragic what we see on a daily basis. So that's the background on the Golden Project.
Wow, that is just like such a, and I love that you're coming at this with this business hat because I think one of the reasons I even started Soul Touched by Dogs was that I often saw, rescues, literally what you're saying, it's the same in Spain. It just pop it on Facebook and then pleading for money. And then you've got bullshit artists hanging off it and it all gets like people don't trust it and they just sort of scraping it's not really run like a business. It isn't
At
run, it
all.
is not well organized. And even it's more an attitude than a financial thing only. So it's that. So what are criteria? I mean, I love the idea to like, okay, let me find let me find potential homes first, or well, like you had those, and now let's find them the dogs, which I love because all of a sudden, it's not like the whole perception changes, right? It's not
Mhm.
just like you do your kind of doing the dog a favor or it's this pity kind of thing like oh rescue the dog. Now all of a sudden the dog's the prize, right? And you have to
Exactly.
apply for it and you have to, what kind of criteria are you looking for when it comes to pre-approving a home?
So good question. People ask us that, right? What we really want, Anka, is we want to know that our dog is going to be loved and cherished forever. We want to know that they're financially capable of something happening, right? If a dog, a golden especially, is prone to eating things, right? They're chew, and especially if they're puppies, and if that sock goes in, it can twist around the intestines. And I just talked to an adopter this morning, and her mini golden dude had to be put down at 6 years old because it was the second time he ingested something and they'd already taken out part of his intestines on the first surgery. So they said he wouldn't survive the second one. So, and they had tried to be really careful, but three boys in the house plus daddy, all playing sports, and there's invariably going to be socks. And, some dogs are just prone to chewing. So, that kind of surgery can be $3,000 to $5,000. So we want to make sure if they can't afford our adoption fee, then that's a flag for us, right? And if somebody is really well referenced or friends with somebody that we know, like another adopter, and they highly recommend, and they may be going through a financial crunch right now with kids in college and renovating the house, then what we ask is we ask them to buy pet insurance.
Mm.
So this way we know that our dog will be taken care of. So that's one of the big things. We don't want the dog back, right? Period. I don't want to rehome a dog. That's very traumatic on the dog. It's hard on us. We do a 3-hour driving distance from any board member or key volunteer, but that gives us 11 states. And when I do the criteria here where I live in Westchester County. So we're little villages, 3,000, 4,000 people in each village. Because I rode my horse for years, we have 130 miles of trails. I know so many roads. I know the houses. So I'm real comfortable. And I'll also have Facebook friends in common or LinkedIn people. I have 167 common LinkedIn connections with one adopter. So it gives me a high degree of comfort in terms of knowing who they are. Once we get out to Texas, it becomes much more difficult because it's so large.
Mm.
Just driving within Texas could be 10 hours.
Yeah.
And once you get out into the boonies, into the country, you just don't have as many vets. You don't have orthopedic surgeons. The closest one could be 90 minutes, 2 hours away. And so if something happens to your dog, they're not going to be seen. So those are the things that we look at. I'm very blessed in this foster system. I have these angels, these amazing angels. I built a private Facebook group. We don't let anyone in until they are approved to adopt or foster or volunteer. And so we built this sense of community. And so when I put a dog up, we just recently took a starving dog. It looked like a skeleton. It was a black-mouthed cur. And she was out on the streets of Rio Grande Valley next to a dog that we thought was a golden, who's not a golden. And she was so skinny, Anka, you would just cry looking at her. So I was hoping another rescue would step in, but unfortunately, everybody works in urgency. So once we got the dog off the street into boarding, then the urgency is gone. No other rescue stepped up. So we have a black mouth cur. So I put a plea in the group. I put a picture of her and I said, we're taking Rita off the street. If anyone can help with food, she's so skinny. We need puppy food. We need stew. We need dewormer. And oh my goodness, people are so generous. They sent 6 bags of this very expensive food that we use, and stew and dewormer and flea and tick. People are just so generous, you know? So we have this wonderful sense of community. We got Rita up to Dallas, which is a 10-hour drive. We have a transport that comes up on Mondays, and she has heartworm, both tick-borne diseases, an upper respiratory infection, parasites, and ear infections. So she's already cost us $300 for the first visit, and heartworm will be another $600, spay and neuter and everything else. So, you know, she'll be at
like that.
$1,200.
Everything is so expensive, right?
Well, Texas is cheap, cheap, cheap for spay and neuter.
Compared.
I mean, I pay under $200 for spay and neuter. And here on the East Coast, the cheapest I can get is 300.
Yeah.
So big difference. It's 1,100 usually if you're a regular person going in on the East Coast.
So if somebody is thinking of getting into all of this, right? So, hey, well, I want to, and I would imagine a lot of people sort of stumble into the whole rescue thing. They probably, I would imagine you find a dog and you find another dog, and before you know it, you have a rescue kind of thing. So what is something that, like a piece of advice, or where would somebody start so they won't end up being that desperate rescue to just kind of randomly throw some pictures out on Facebook? Like how does one go about setting this up in this well-structured way so that the dogs aren't just like, on a list and just wither away there?
Yeah, so that's a very difficult question. So what we hope to do is I'm working on some major deals, and I hope to be able to create a foundation and put tools in it and a primer. If I actually had a book that actually said this is step 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That would have made it so much easier. I didn't know how 501c3. I'm not good at administrative. I don't have an assistant, like hiring an attorney. Should we do a dual registration? There's so many, many pieces. You have to be licensed in each state, So what I would suggest, I was an independent rescuer. I stayed in between. I had 5 of my own dogs all the time, lots of cats, rabbits, guinea pigs. Once you're set up for one thing, it's like, what's one more? And so I think some people can get in over their head. So I would say suggesting plan it out just like a business. How many are you going to take? Are you going to be foster based or kennel based? Are you going to do a specific breed? Are you going to take from a certain area? How are you going to adopt? A lot of this I just stumbled through. We needed fosters. The guy I started with could take 1 dog at a time. And he works full time, and he has a mouse tracker on his computer, so his boss knows whether or not he's working. So he can't get up and run out in the middle of the day. And so we're very, very blessed to have these amazing angels. I mean, we took a dog off death row. I didn't know she was pregnant. And this foster way out in the country happened to be in the city and saw my post and volunteered. And we had 14 dogs, 14 puppies. She bought incubators, hand fed them. So finding people like that are what you need. You need to have angels around you, people that are willing to do the work, aren't going to say, oh, sorry, I can't drive at 9 o'clock at night. It's past my bedtime.
Yeah.
Right? Because we never know when we have to go pick up a dog.
So true, so true. So, that book you wish you had, are you going to write it?
I am. Yeah, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to set up a software directory of all the dog rescues in the United States. We're going to require audits. We're going to pay for the audits under X. We're going to give them a discount on audit fees between X and Y. And then over Z, they'll pay for it every year. The others will be random once every 3 years. That gets rid of the scam rescues. Because there are scam rescues out there that take pictures of emaciated dog. The dog I was talking about, Rita, take her picture. Nobody knows whether or not they actually have it.
Yeah,
And
you see that a lot here. And I know, I had a project going on in like well, 10, 11 years ago. And that was a big problem, that you get people who take these photos and then just go out beg for money and don't even have the dog or have no intention of helping any dog. They just, take advantage of people who want to help, but then they get burned and then they're not going to help the dogs that really need it. And that's a big problem. So I
It's a
love that
huge
you
problem.
having
And
that control on it.
yep. So if you have the financial rating, so now we have sort of a Yelp rating, right? And then in this foundation, we're going to give them actually video training for their employees, for their volunteers. We're going to give them the primer. We're going to give them access to things like, I didn't even know you could buy your own microchips. We can buy our own
Oh,
microchips for $5. It's $80 on the East Coast to get a microchip. Out in Texas, it's usually 25 to 30, but they'll only charge you $10 to input it. So if I have $5 cost and then $10, it's 15 rather than 25 or 30. And when you're doing as many dogs as we are, it really adds up. Every couple of months we have another spay paid for. So that's one of the things that I didn't know. And you can't actually buy them until you're 501c3. So, all that sort of stuff. So we are going to put this out there. My goal is to make this more efficient
mm.
because there are so many dogs. We overlap one another as rescues. Sometimes we're going after the same dog. The same dog gets publicized. Nobody updates as to whether or not it's been adopted or rescued. And so we do a lot of accountability. And so I show pictures of the 5 dogs that went on transport the other day, leaving Texas and then arriving in New York. And then we do pictures of the happy dogs. Last week, we adopted 16 dogs in 1 week, and we've
Wow.
taken 9 in this week. So we're very, very active, so we give accountability for that, and that's the thing that's really missing is the accountability. And you just
And
don't know. So,
transparency, right? Yeah,
yes.
because that's the
Ab-
trust building, and I think it always comes down to trust. Just like you want to be able to trust the homes or like the people who adopt it or the people who foster. It's like, yeah, people also need to trust you. So it's that, and that transparency makes all the difference. I love that. Yeah, and
Yep.
this whole,
And
like,
then
I love how you put your business hat on to run this in this, yeah, I think in that sensible way. I don't even want to say like a tight ship. It doesn't even feel like a tight ship. It just feels like, oh, there's common sense. There's a business hat on. There's like efficiency. There's transparency that actually makes this so much more impactful. Because I have no numbers to compare to, but like the number of dogs you've saved in such a short amount of time. I mean, that is just mind blowing.
I think it is a big number. I mean, the first 9 months we'd done almost 100, and one of the other volunteers, was like, "Do you know how amazing that is for a brand new organization?" We weren't even a 501c3, right? So we're running this through one of my businesses. So we've made some mistakes along the way. We've had some learning lessons. We've only made a couple of mistakes on fosters, but those have been painful. We've made a couple of mistakes on adopters. Those have also been very painful. So we learn from that and we try to get better and better. I'm, again, very lucky that I have the people that are passionate about this project, and the group builds that sense of community.
Mm.
But the problem is, there's a lot of bad situations out there, and also you run out of time. So I do think with AI, I think that there's some real potential for AI to be able to make this process more efficient. One of the big problems is posting your dogs. By the time you post a dog, especially the way we do it, and put the bio up, the dog could be adopted. And so then
Oh,
taking the dog down and putting a new one up, right? 9 new dogs this week. That means that we would have to have bios, all the vet updates, everything. And we don't get them vetted until next week, right? So do we wait until next week? But in the meantime, I could have an adopter, and if they're local in Texas, I could, if they're close enough and open, they can actually take the dog and bring it to the appointment. So there's a lot of things out there. A lot of times I have had very deep conversations with 2 of my rescue friends, and this just goes in one ear and out the other. I could see one at lunch, her eyes were glazing over. She's a social worker, right? And another one, I was explaining it, and she goes, "Yeah, I just want to save more dogs." And they
oh.
just don't understand that this would make the whole
I
process
mean,
more
that's the thing.
efficient.
If it's more efficient, then you can save more dogs, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like my little business hat, my little business mind goes, oh my God, this is how this should work. So where can people get in touch? So if somebody goes, oh, I would love to run my rescue in a more efficient way, or I want to get into this, or I want to get you in touch with our local rescue who isn't kind of catching on to, like, needs the education and get that shortcut to not having to figure it out all by themselves. So where can they find you? How can they get
Yeah, so I want
a
to be
better info?
careful. I can't spread myself too thin because running the rescue already takes a huge number of hours. I left the house at 7:30 yesterday and I got back at 8:30 at night, so I was here for a few hours in the middle of the day, but we had two crises going on. So the Golden Project is our Facebook. We have a Facebook page, which we have a fair amount of followers and get more every day. I have an Instagram page that I started a few months ago, and I do video every morning of me hiking in the woods, and I talk about what dogs. Sometimes I talk about food, natural flea and tick, etc. We're very holistic. And the Golden Project hearts@gmail.com is our email address. So that would be the easiest way to reach me. And
awesome. And I'll obviously pop
Charlie
that in the
Bird.
show notes, and it's going to be easy. I'm going to make it as easy as I can to find you, but not so easy that you don't have time for the dogs.
Great, perfect, wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think this is a real this glimmer of hope in that world where it's easy to get discouraged by so much misery, to actually see how things can be done better and save so many dogs. I think can only congratulate you, and thank you for coming and sharing what's been happening in the last year.
Thanks, Anka. I appreciate you having me. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, @soultouchedbydogs.com.